evening, gamers. I am once again, as per usual, going to check in on my YouTube channel to make sure that this is actually going through to you. But hello, how are you all doing on this fine? I actually don't know what day of the week it is. It's a Thursday. How are you all doing on this fine Thursday evening? I'm the Fatty Patty, as per usual, and welcome to. Sorry about that. Alright, it certainly is going through to you. Wait, I actually gotta make sure that the music is as well. Yes, it is. Okay, alright, sorry about that. If you heard doubles, I've apologized twice now. Alright, I'm the Fatty Patty, and welcome back to my channel, or if you're brand new, welcome to the channel in general. Tonight, we're going to be playing Vampire the Masquerade Night Road by one Carl Marquis. I believe is how you pronounce that. My apologies, Carl. Third time. If I have butchered that expeditiously. In the description down below, you can find Rik Schaffer's music, the guy whose music I'm listening to right now. It's got playing on in the background. He did music for the Elder Scrolls Online, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, and tons of other games and stuff I'm sure you've heard of. If you want to check out this song amongst his other work, find it there. You'll also find the Steam page for Night Road itself, because this is, as you can probably tell, an interactive novel. How fun, you get to make your own story as you go. So if you don't like some of the choices I made and think you could do it better than I could, which in all honesty you probably could, you got some smart people out in the world, feel free to buy the game, support Kyle, and hopefully he'll get us a sequel one of these days. You'll also find that for anybody that plays 5th edition Vampire the Masquerade, if you go to the World of Darkness website, log in and go to your account, they have resources that they don't have printed in most of the books, including choices of games, which are the people that publish this book and many other interactive novels. Choice of games. What do you call them? Lore sheets, so that you can, if you want to play as a Night Road's courier in your 5th edition vampire game, feel free to. Note that I am not at all sponsored by any of the people I mentioned beforehand. I just wanted to, cover all my bases, make sure that if you or anybody in the audience, I guess, wants to hang out, or not hang out, if anybody in the audience wants to check out any of these fine people or any of their work, yeah, pop down in the description. Feel free to check them out from there. So before we begin, I'm going to name him Teddy. Why not? We're going to call this guy Teddy. The character, for your imagination as well as mine, is going to be a white middle-aged man. You'll see. Book does a better job at describing both lore and character than I will ever be able to, but because we don't get to customize our character visually, I would like to take a moment and describe what our main character looks like for the evening. So, our character, Teddy, I'd say he looks like he's bordering on his late 20s, early 30s, maybe. He's got a strong nose and long brown hair. Flows in the back, shorter in the front, as you would expect from all sorts of people. I imagine it's a recurring visage here in America. I'm not sure about anywhere else. But yeah, now that you have a visual aid for the character, no art because I'm not an artist, by Jove. Let's go ahead and begin. I will also say that these, just like I mentioned with the Swan Song series, that's the last thing I promise you all. Just like I mentioned in the Swan Song series, this will be canon to my personal V5 tabletop experience that I have going on with some of my friends. So, hi guys. Hope you're enjoying this if you decided to pop in. If not, that's A-okay. You won't be hearing this anyway, so I don't need to address that. But anyway, let's begin. Chapter 1. Just Getting By. Arizona, we're on the I-10 heading west, night of November the 1st. Sunrise is at 6:41 a.m. You're getting ready to pass a diesel Mercedes when the shifter goes all loose. You jiggle the stick and pump the clutch, but it's like holding a dead man's hand. Your old Honda drifts off the highway in a cloud of sand and grit. A moment later, the engine stalls. You pop the hood and fumble around in the back for a flashlight. Then you realize that it's getting light out. You can feel that this poor car, your companion for 10 lonely years, is finished. And if you're still out here when the desert sun rises, so are you. Cars fall apart, so do people, so do phones. You pull out your old iPhone and check the time in the cracked screen, 6:05 a.m. Unlike your poor Honda or the tattered air freshener hanging it from your mirror, which used to hide the smell of dried blood, you'll last forever, if you can find somewhere to hide before 6:41 a.m., that is. You've been making these courier runs for 10 years, each year making less than the last, hiding in trunks and storage units during the day, racing down the desert highways at night with messages and parcels on your passenger seat. It's been boring. It's felt like getting old, trapped in this body that can never age. Well, you're not bored now, you're even breathing again, short, frightened little breaths, as you watch the sky lighten in the east. Nerves you thought extinguished years ago fire up again, making your hand shake. You feel almost alive as you check under the hood. The cable clutch is fucked, but no surprise there. Maintenance hasn't been a possibility, let alone a priority. And when you look at the engine, you realize that the problems run deeper than one busted cable. You've been ignoring the warning signs like an old man who keeps coughing and won't go to the doctor. And the engine looks like you're going to look in exactly. You check your phone again. 16 minutes. Maybe there's still time. You look around the dusty highway, the wasteland that stretches out to the black horizon in every direction, and try to recall your mortal life. Something you learned when you still drew your first breath must have the power to save you here. I imagine Teddy as a bit of a socialite. He got through life trying to talk his way through his problems, as opposed to actually putting in any effort, which isn't to say that he didn't put any effort when it came to things like his academics. He most certainly did, but if he could weasel his way out of having to do an assignment rather than doing it, he probably would have. So we're gonna go with the I had a lot of mortal friends and I've kept in touch with some. They might have a good idea if I call one. Or at least they can pull up a map on their phones and tell me which way to run. You bite your thumb to get enough moisture on it to affect your phone's capacitive touchscreen and pull up your contact list. Using a phone can draw hunters. That's why people use couriers like you, after all. But these are all people from your old life, carried like talismans from phone to phone. You haven't seen most of them in years. Sometimes you see pictures of them on Instagram, and they have gray at their temples or wrinkles around their eyes. There are old buildings around here somewhere, off the highway, to the right or left. That's the question, and if you're wrong, you burn. And your tortuously slow data connection means you can't pull up anything useful fast enough. If you can just get one of your contacts to run search in the area, you'll know which way to go. You call, and I will pause for a moment if anybody wants to stop and read through these. Okay, I think I'm gonna go with the scientist named Vani. I met her just before I became a courier, back when I still kept up my studies. She still owes me a favor. You ran out of money long before you could finish your graduate program, but you still remember some of your research, and you definitely still know how to beg for funding. When you crawled through the ruins of your old life shortly after your embrace, you met Vani, who was an undergrad at the time. You were half an animal in those nights, but she reminded you of what you had been before the retreat into the darkness. She never guessed at what you were, but you used your powers to help her a few times, and you think she still remembers you fondly, even though you disappeared suddenly a few years later. You followed her research ever since, though you haven't checked up on her in a few months, but you still have her number. You give her a call. She answers her right away using the name you gave her and still use. My name is... Let's go ahead and... Bop. Your name is Teddy? Yes, Teddy. Is that you, Teddy? She says. She sounds tired. You wonder if you just woke her up. Oh, God, how did you get this number? You tell her that it's the same number she's had for years and start to explain how she can help. When she cuts you off, you can't call me, she says. I'm sorry, but you just can't. I'm working. I have to go. For your own sake, but just don't call me. She hangs up. And while Vani's panicked reaction is an interesting mystery, you're going to burn in a few minutes and don't have time to think about it. Instead, you grab the satchel with your deliveries and head away from the abandoned highway, looking for anything that might save you from destruction. An old mine shaft, an abandoned shack, anything. The stars to the east are gone, replaced by a purple haze. It's 6:30 a.m. You remember the last time you saw the sun. You were working at a coffee shop down the street from a Starbucks, taking a quote-unquote gap year because you didn't have any money on you and were having problems with your student loan payments. You remember looking out the window as the sun set, turning the windows red gold. The Starbucks was hopping. So was a gastropub next door, but your little coffee shop was empty. Then the sun set, and someone came inside and didn't order anything. When you rose again, burning with hunger and sticky with your own blood, your killer did not call you kindred or canite or vampire. First, you learned about your clan, your lineage, a bloodline that existed since before history, before all cities except one. Your killer said you belonged to Clan Tremere, scholars, conspirators, and blood sorcerers. The quote unquote usurpers of Clan Tremere are said to descend from a mortal wizard who stole immortal life from an ancient vampire. Once organized into a disciplined arcane hierarchy, the sorcerers of Clan Tremere are in turmoil after the destruction of their greatest occult stronghold. The disciplines you get are Auspex, blood sorcery, and dominate. Though famous for their thaumaturgy, their intricate sorcerous tradition, many Tremere also possess supernaturally acute senses and the power to command mortals with a word. Your clan weakness is frail blood. This manifests in different ways for different usurpers. Some mend their flesh slowly, others cannot form blood bonds or create ghoul servitors. I am Clan Tremere. Long ago, a hidden society of wizards sought more than power and mastery. They wanted immortality. The head of their order, a wizard named Tremere, thought he had found it in the blood of an ancient vampire. Tremere thought he knew the price he would pay, but though the Elder's blood granted Tremere and his followers eternal life, it also destroyed their magic. As wizards, they had shaped reality with will alone, as a sculptor shapes wet clay. But vampires are not artists, they're corpses, and the magic of Clan Tremere was dead. But they still had their iron will and their urge for mastery, and with that, they survived into modern nights. Each Tremere loyal to the one above in an invincible pyramid of obedience and secrecy. And then the pyramid shattered, and your sire, the sorcerer scientist in video call, stuffed a bunch of trash bags full of arcane marvels and hoofed it out of New York, leaving you behind, half-trained and beset by enemies. But before she left, she gave you a vision and purpose. You were a philosopher of blood sorcery. Clan Tremere wanted not just magic power, but to regain the pure and effortless wizardry they commanded in the Mythic Age. Through intuition, ritual, and harrowing wilderness journeys, I helped Call seek that return to enlightenment. In the nights before Nvidia Call's embrace, the Tremere struggled with the purpose of their sorcery. What was it for? Some said that power and immortality were enough. Had they not rebuilt the power that their ancestors wielded back when they walked beneath the sun? But others still yearned for something more. Enlightenment, ascension, whatever you want to call it, those Tremere wanted the effortless mastery that their wizard ancestors had possessed. Not rote and ritual, fueled by stolen blood, wedded to an antiquated medieval system of occult correspondences. But by the 20th century, most Tremere had forgotten such lofty philosophical dreams. They existed in a world of arcane and temporal power, joined to each other through the pyramid, joined to the rest of the night world through the Camarilla, the secret society of vampires, where they served as advisors, eminences grises, I do not know Latin. They wielded thaumaturgy, the greatest system of blood sorcery ever devised, right? Nvidia Call rejected this complacency. Maybe she didn't want ascension, but these dusty rituals, this ridiculous obedience to a cabal of old men somewhere in Austria, she found it absurd. Not absurd enough to reject entirely, though. Instead, she crafted a kind of golem or totem into which she could pour all her frustrations. You. In life, you had been a frustrated seeker and deep thinker, but not at all a suitable apprentice for the scholastic and sophisticated Tremere. But Nvidia didn't want an apprentice. She wanted a shape for her dissatisfaction. And in that role you succeeded. You mastered thaumaturgy, true, but you also began your quest for a deeper understanding of magic in the blood. You would disappear for weeks into the wild, feeling, thinking, trying to understand, and when you returned, Nvidia always listened. Until one night, when she wasn't there. You had paid vague attention to the politics of your clan. You knew that their great arcane fortress in Vienna had fallen and the Second Inquisition was hunting vampires, but you did not know that they would come for you. The earth itself seemed to warn you of the danger that night. You fled minutes before the hunters found your apartment and firebombed it. And after all that, 10 years on these miserable desert highways, scraping by on the quote-unquote charity of your elders as you run their errands, if you were still alive, you'd be middle-aged. The elders of the kindred are lies wrapped in flesh, and death is no promise of immortality. You've seen 100 Canaanites born into the night only to die a few months later at the hands of hunters or their own kind just because they didn't know what time it was. Strange that you're going to die young. The air ripples. It smells like burning metal. You never should have bought a hatchback. You instinctively flicker through the library of arcane rites, but all of your blood sorcery takes time, which you do not have. You tell yourself that you're not burning, not yet, that the smell is just the scent of your fear. It's someone else's blood simulating sweat on your forehead. It's a familiar smell, actually. Metal, rust. Blood! You smell blood. You run towards the smell of blood. The lightning sky reveals an old filing station, faded sign banging faintly in the slight wind with the creak of metal, located just off an old frontage road. Its windows have been boarded up for years. You don't see blood, and now you can't even smell it, but that doesn't matter. As the first ruby red light touches the hills, only shelter matters. Maybe you have a chance. Though the station looks abandoned, you see footprints in the sand. A gold eagle sits on the striped diesel dispenser, watching you with unsettling intensity. You approach the main building, looking for a way in. The windows and doors are all boarded up, and though there's a garage door for a loading dock, it seems locked. The eagle spreads its wings and screams. You don't have time for this. The sun will kill you, but first it will drive you mad. You can feel the beast rising in you. The beast. The untamed monster that lurks inside every vampire, that drives you to acts of depravity and violence. You're losing control. You need to act now, but that eagle seems almost to have been put there to guard this place. Its talons flex. I'm an expert on thaumaturgy, which I continued to study even after Linvidia disappeared. I must know some blood sorcery ritual to get inside, or at least to get rid of that eagle. Your battered jacket is full of occult paraphernalia for performing the rituals you know, and running your fingers over them offers comfort even as you feel the beast rising within you, threatening to drive you mad. But there's no ritual you can perform quickly enough. You pull out a heavily modified Kindle loaded with Picatrix and related grimoires, a folding knife you had planned to enchant with azimite death magic, a silver flask intended for a Tremere ritual covered in scratchy Greek letters. The eagle's eyes snap to the flask, and in that moment you realize that this creature is no common beast. It is a famulus, a servant of the blood. The kindred of Clan Gangrel love their hellhounds and ghoul ravens, though this one, yes, it understands what you're holding. How can a famulus recognize an artifact of Tremere blood sorcery? Right now, who cares? This might be your only chance. You wave the silver flask one more time, then hurl it away from you. The eagle flies past you to retrieve the half-finished artifact. Without the distraction of the eagle, you're able to move quickly around the abandoned station. You run to the north side, which will buy you a few more seconds before the light destroys you, and there you find a single open window. As smoke starts to escape from your clothes, you wiggle inside, then crawl away, then kick away from the hole. A wave of exhaustion hits you as the sun rises fully. The kindred were not meant to remain awake during daylight hours, and you look around for anywhere safe you might rest. There's an old metal-topped freezer beside a counter here, just big enough to hold you, and sealed against sunlight. Inching around the shafts of daylight that filter through the open window and the gaps in the boards, you wrench the old freezer open. It smells like expired milk, but you can't worry about that now. You drop into the old freezer and pull the lid shut. Then you mentally inventory all the things you need to worry about. Your ruined car, the ache of hunger in your gums, the smell of fresh blood somewhere in this building, the strange eagle. You may not survive another night, but you survived this one. You survived the fall of the pyramid and disappearance of your sire in Vidia Call. You survived out here in the desert for years, one night at a time. You permit yourself a tight little smile. You can still make it. You can still find a way out of this. And then the blackness of the day sleep swallows you. Chapter 2, Into the Sunset. We're still on the Arizona I-10 heading west. Night of November the 2nd. Sunrise is at 6:42 a.m. If anyone had found you that day in the disused freezer, they would see only a disheveled corpse. And while the sun is in the sky, that's all you are. The blood you got back in El Paso before you hopped in your Honda awakens the moment the sun sets. The return to consciousness is instantaneous and agonizing. You open your eyes in blackness. Your limbs are still heavy as if crushed by the weight of the sun. As you wait, you think about the Camarilla, and you remember what the elders made you do after Vidia Call disappeared. You were desperate then, and you knew you had to obey. They paired you with another desperate young Canaanite, a charming young man named Julian Sim who talked too much. He was something that other kindred call an Azimite, and back then you didn't know whether that was another clan like Tremere or another sect like the Camarilla. No one ever bothered to tell you. Excuse me. Julian had the eager energy of a congressional page and the glittering, patient eyes of a reptile. He was out for himself, and so were you, and that gave you something in common. You remember Julian's lime green Drio tracker crunching to a halt over gravel. You jumped out and felt the sand beneath your feet, still hot after sunset, though the night air felt cool. Carrying water for the ivory tower, eh, Teddy? Julian said with a light chuckle, hoisting the plastic gallon jugs out of the back of the tracker. Each read Buena Suerte or something like that, like it in blue Sharpie. You didn't laugh. This wasn't humanitarian work. Or maybe it was. The desert princes still fear the thing that slept under those sands. They told you that if it woke up hungry, it would tear this land apart. How long do you think we're going to do this? Julian asked. Julian talked too much, but sometimes he cut through the bullshit with words that carried a constellation of meanings. How long? Decades, centuries. We, neonates, nothing but larvae in the eyes of the elders in this awful work. Let's see what options we have. This is how we survive to see another night, and as far as I can see, it's the only way. Complaining won't save anyone. Julian grimaced as he wrestled with the water. I want to do more than survive, Teddy, he said. That's all our elders do. They endure. They persist. What kind of existence is that? Now, I'm not an idiot. I have better things to do than run off into the desert and get destroyed. But can you really do this for another 50 years? Mortals uploading their brains into computers and colonizing the poles of Venus, and we're dragging water through the desert in a geotracker? A hot desert wind whipped Julian's black hair around his head as he counted the gallons of water. The Camarilla gave you a job they considered necessary, even vital. Desperate migrants stumbled through this part of the desert, fleeing violence in Mexico and Central America for the promise of a better life in the States. Without water, many died. Aid groups dropped water and supplies for the migrants. The year before, the Camarilla had infiltrated and supplanted one of those aid groups, replacing their members with you and Julian. Your job? Position the water above the scattered layers of the Nosferatu Elder, the one known as Rimmerau. It says Riri Mouse. I'm going to say Rimmerhouse, because that's how I was pronouncing it when I was reading on my own. The victims, he claimed, would give him enough blood to prevent his full awakening. This sucks, Julian said as you checked the GPS coordinates on your Garmin. I mean, I know what we are. I know what we do to survive, but this is just so stupid. It's inefficient and wasteful. This is how the world ran 2 or 3 centuries ago, Teddy, before anyone invented flowcharts or assembly lines. It was ugly work, but more people would have suffered if the Elder woke up. So I went back to work. You sighed and did what had to be done. Julian always had plans to get out and move up in those nights, but they never seemed to come to anything, and though the Camarilla elders have been cruel, vindictive monsters, they had been right about the Rimmerhouse. His awakening would have killed thousands. Because a few years later, some of the old ones really did wake up, and you heard the horror stories, even though you were on the other side of the world. So that night, you checked your position on the Garmin one last time, dropped off the water, and got back into Julian's geo-tracker. A few months later, Julian got his money, though you never learned how. Something to do with venture capital interest. With venture capital interested in the software he was developing. Anyway, one night he just disappeared, leaving you with the geo-tracker and a stack of CDs with file names written on them in blue Sharpie, and instructions to deliver them to an industrial park in Austin. You looked up his new company, 2100X, which was apparently located in Denver, but you could never find an address or a contact number, and that's been your life ever since. You can move your hands now. You push the top of the freezer open, haul yourself out, and drop silently to the ground. Your hunger is an ache in the back of your gums that leads right up behind your eyes that threatens to turn into a migraine. You can hold off the beast a few more nights like this, but you'll need to feed soon. You wander past dusty and empty shelves and glance outside through the gaps in the boarded-up windows. You can see the strange eagle, but you still smell blood. It's faded, but impossible to ignore. Movement catches your eye, but it's just your reflection in the broken glass of an empty display case. You stare into the eyes of an haunted-looking, eternally young man. You look like shit. Bloodshot eyes, skin pulled back from your nails and teeth, thrift store clothes. Even your satchel looks like someone dragged it down a highway. You check the satchel. Your deliveries, the USBs, are still in there. Then you hear someone outside, a few whispered words in Spanish, weeping. Thank God. Food. They must have pulled some of the boards away to get inside, then covered them up so no one from the road spots their flashlight. You're in the middle of the disused convenience store's 3 aisles, invisible in the darkness. At the far side of the store, a short hallway leads to 3 doors, a locked bathroom straight ahead, and then 2 doors, one to the left and one to the right. You guess the left door leads to a storage room. The mortals are trying to get it open. You count 4 of them, a man and a woman in their mid-20s, an ancient woman and a frail gray-haired older man, even smaller than the old woman. The younger woman whispers something in Spanish you don't quite catch, then forces the storage room door open with a shriek of metal. Not much here, the young man says, sweeping the storage room with his flashlight. He's traveling heavy. Crowbar, backpack, water bottles, road flares. Hey, wait a minute, those are your road flares. They must have found your Honda. Whoever they are, they're foolish or desperate to bring a woman in her 70s at least, and a guy who isn't built for this kind of work. You're surprised that they're this far north without having already made contact with somebody. The younger woman starts jiggling the handle to the bathroom, which is between the storage room and the office, bored and fearless. The old man hobbles down one of the aisles, and your beast screams behind your eyes. I can't risk violating the Masquerade, the undead code of secrecy and silence, by revealing what I am. I stay hidden. Your sire, Dr. Call, disagreed with her elders in the pyramid about nearly everything, but she understood that one law, one tradition was paramount, the Masquerade. The mortals must never know. You don't know who these people are or what threats they could pose. You're not even sure there are only 4 of them. You stick to the darkness and wait. So you have an excellent view when the young woman finally gets the bathroom door open and the thing inside bites down on her face. The woman manages half a scream. The old man turns, sees the mutilated corpse dangling from those huge jaws, and moans in horror. The thing holding the corpse hurls it towards the old man, missing you by a few inches and splattering your face with blood, and both the corpse and the old guy go down. You absently note that the woman's corpse is already drained of blood. Then you turn to confront the thing in the bathroom. The kindred of Clan Nosferatu are never beautiful, but this one is particularly hideous, stark naked and so tall he has to stoop to get out of the room, with a flattened skull and huge bat-like ears that make it impossible to imagine what he looks like in life. And then you look into his flat black eyes and realize there is nothing there. April 2007. In the end, we're weaker than they are, Julian says, watching a trio of teenagers across the 7-Eleven parking lot. He sips blood from his extreme gulp, then uses it to gesture at the mortals. I mean, spiritually, we're weaker. We're like scurvy victims or something. We can't heal the beast, you say. I'm not going to ask what you've done in its grip, Julian says, or what you've done on your own and blame the beast for, but I know that the beast will eat you if you're not careful. It'll eat your soul and live behind your eyes. When that happens to one of us, the Camarilla call them whites and hunt them down. And the Azamites, you ask? I don't know, Julian says. I never had the courage to ask. The Nosferatu, the mindless white that had once been a Nosferatu, spots you, but then it turns, and though you cannot see the tough-looking young guy and the old woman, you know that they're cornered in the storage room. As the dead woman's blood runs down its chin, the creature weighs its options. It turns towards the storage room, moving awkwardly because a huge chain is fastened around one of its legs. Then something lashes out of the corner, and the white reels back, more in surprise than pain. The young man strikes the creature again with his crowbar. That won't be enough to fend off a monster like this. These people would be dead in moments, and then the fallen Nosferatu would turn its mindless rage onto you. I shout and rally the young man to fight the white off. The road flares! That would do more against this monster than a crowbar. When people get scared, they can behave irrationally. You know, because you've scared a lot of people. Sometimes they freeze, sometimes they repeat stereotyped routines even when in mortal danger, and sometimes they do whatever they're told. The man does what he's told. You can't see him, but you can hear him fumbling for the road flare. Light, come on, light! He cries. There's a short scream and a sickening crunch. The old woman, you realize, must have tried to slow the monster down. Then the storage room fills with red light as the man ignites the flare. The beast is not just rage and hunger, it's also fear, wild, irrational animal fear. A road flare cannot seriously harm this monster, but the beast knows that fire can destroy it as surely as sunlight. Even you feel a shock of terror, and the white is nothing but its primal urges. It howls and flees, dropping the dead woman and ripping it away its chain in haste. You duck in time just as steel links fly past your head. Mad with fear, the creature smashes through the boarded up front door and disappears into the night. The young man looks from one dead woman to the other, then kneels down beside the unconscious old man, his movements stiff from pain. The elder moans and opens his eyes. You have 1,000 questions and one problem. Where did the Nosferatu come from? Who chained it up? Was it imprisoned because it had become a white, or did it lose its mind during its imprisonment? And what are you going to do with these people who just saw a blood-stained, bat-eared monster kill 2 women? I appeal to their higher principles. I saved their lives, somewhat true, and they owe me. They should remain silent. The survivors are badly shaken, and it feels like it takes you half the night to bring them around to your point of view. But ultimately, your point is a simple one. If they talk, no one will believe them, and bad things will happen. If they don't talk, they'll help you, and they'll help themselves. By the end of these negotiations, which are, in effect, negotiations for these people's lives, the young man agrees to keep your secret and convinces his elder to do likewise. You don't think they'll talk, so you let them go. They disappear into the desert. You check your iPhone. It's broken. You take out the SIM card and destroy it, then destroy the spares you carry. You wear a watch because sunrise is never far from your mind, and yes, that's broken too. Then you check your satchel, but the USBs are all there, all safe. Your hunger is still a dull ache in your teeth, and you're still in control. For now. You check yourself again, and in the cracked glass of an empty display case, there's blood on your hands and face, and clumps of gore in your hair. And your shirt and your jeans are in tatters. You try the sink in the bathroom, but the water has been shut off for years. After scraping it for a few minutes, you find some cleaning supplies. Being dead, you don't worry too much as you scrape blood off your face with a sponge. After a few minutes, you look like an escaped mental patient, but not like a Romero zombie. No one in the right mind would pick you up as a hitchhiker, but you might be able to reach town. You head back to where you left your car, but it's gone. Instinctively, you check the satchel one more time, but everything is there. Everything that just happened was a distraction, someone else's problem. You can reach the outskirts of Tuscan before dawn, and from there you make your way to the new Prince's Court. Just deliver these USBs, and you'll make enough money for a new car. You'll be able to keep doing this, night after night. You start walking. Chapter 3. The Eagle Prince, Tuscan, Arizona. Night of November 2nd, sunrise 6:42 a.m. So before we continue with Chapter 3, I do want to clarify that that entire intro sequence, even though it all felt set in stone, you can actually save more than the 2 people. I apparently just messed something up in there, probably because I didn't check my stats before that, but I'm trying to go in blind. I'm trying to roleplay, like how Teddy here would. So, let us continue. Your feet hurt. You already passed the place you were supposed to stay yesterday, but it's just an empty garage. There's nothing there for you. An hour before dawn, you reach the chain-link fences and industrial parks that mark the outskirts of Tuscan. You can see cheap stucco houses up ahead, but the burbs are no place for a vampire. Without a cell phone or money, and with your clothes too trashed for polite company, you revert to the skills you honed in the desperate years after the fall of the pyramid. When you find an abandoned semi-trailer in a factory parking lot, you note that the high walls should keep off the worst heat. You check it for holes in the ceiling, finding none, you crawl inside. You spend the day with your brain screaming in terror and your body paralyzed as trucks and factory machines move all around you. Someone actually moves a trailer which you're sure hasn't been moved in years. They drag it into the sun, so you spend the day boiling in a metal box under Arizona's daytime heat. The moment the sun sets, you throw open the door and, even though people are still working, flee into the night. By Cain, I am not going to continue to exist like this. I don't care what I have to do to get a clean apartment and a nice car, but I will do them. As you kick some black filth off of your ruined boots, a BMW i8 rolls past without making a sound. You're not asking for a BMW, just a car that runs, a screen that isn't cracked, boots that aren't Christ. What is that stuck to your boots? You check your USBs. Your satchels is shredded beyond usefulness, but the delivery itself is fine. You're a few hours from where you need to be. You're going to walk in there looking like hell, but you're not going to walk out of there like that, you promise yourself. Tucson, Arizona, night of November 3rd. Sunrise at 6:29 is at 6:29 a.m. You never wanted to come back to Tuscan. It's been a black spot on your personal map for years, but here you are. You have to avoid the good neighborhoods, the big stucco houses on their little plots of land with their raked out front yards and blue recycling bins. For a few minutes, a black and white Mustang with the thin blue line Punisher decal on the hood creeps behind you in first gear. You can't tell if it's an actual police car or some kind of Patriot group, but you cut through the park where they can't follow. There's a public bathroom there. You might be able to clean up a little. The mirror is cracked and someone shit in the urinal, but the water works. You spend a few minutes scraping the trash off, then look around for either threats or opportunities. Your hunger is gnawing at you. There's a gnawing distraction in the back of your mind, but you can still think. And you find yourself thinking, where are all the junkies? It's not like this is a nice park. You lurk in the shadows for a few minutes just to remember what it's like, but you don't see anyone. That's when you recognize where you are. This abandoned building that was the lair of Lampago, a thing of legend that was once one of the kindred, though no one knows for sure. A shape-shifting monstrosity destroyed by hunters as the Second Inquisition rose to power and began their dreadful crusade against all vampires. She might have been a monster, but there aren't many creatures like her left, just a obedient little kindred without imagination. I wish I could have seen her. The age of wonder is always passing, isn't it? You are immortal, but you are immortal. Must you spend eternity in the stuffy little rooms trading bonds, mots with stuffed corpses? This reminds you, the Elysium awaits. Elysium is one of the defining ideas of the Camarilla. It is a neutral meeting ground where violence and the use of vampire powers are forbidden. In many Elysiums, kindred are allowed to exist as they are, not as the Masquerade demands they be. The Tuscan Elysium is located on the roof of a nightclub called the Viper. You can hear the pounding industrial music from the... Goodness, excuse me, I have to yawn. Okay. You can hear the pounding industrial music from the parking lot, but you're not here for the party. You've been outside the Viper before, but never in and never up. You scan the rooftop and wonder whether to approach first or try to hunt. It's bad form to arrive in an Elysium hungry, but hunting nearby is often forbidden since it attracts notice. An eagle settles on a fire escape. You remember the way that the eagle looked at you a few nights ago, and you suspect it's the way in. You follow it up the fire escape and trying to ignore the hunger that has you gnawing on your lip. You don't know what shadow art this place employs, but you reach the top step and empty-looking rooftop on the Viper. Sorry, you don't know what shadow art this place employs, but you reach the top step and the empty-looking rooftop of the Viper disappears, replaced by a sprawling patio covered in cacti and desert shrubs. Footpaths lead through the secret garden, and small stone bridges cross narrow rivulets of cold flowing water. From here, the lights of Tuscan are invisible, and the night sky is the way it is deep in the desert, shades of purple and blue and black, with the Milky Way brighter than you've ever seen it. It's quiet up here, but the music from the nightclub below vibrates through the trashed soles of your boots as you cross the flagstones. Your fellow kindred watch you with disgust as your boots leave a crumbly trail of black dirt, but you size them up quickly and dismiss them just as quickly. They're weak Camarilla fledglings and neonates, ghouls, dead-eyed mortal servitors, and blood dolls. You scan the crowd for ghouls, living mortals fed on vampire blood. They gain immortality and a little power in exchange for slavish devotion. They are a vampire's most trusted servant, though they can grow erratic over the years. You think you spot a few, then you look around for someone important. The eagle flies past you and lands beside a young-looking man in a linen suit with turquoise jewelry. He's conversing in worried tones with a Nosferatu, a particularly hideous example of the clan, whose face is a death's head of gray-black muscles, as if her skin has been peeled away. Her monstrous face contrasts with her striking and powerful physique. I focus my willpower to ignore my hunger, and then I still have my dignity. I'm not going to cross the Elysium until I found a way to clean myself up. You spot what looks like a mortal servant, a small and sallow man with lank black hair wearing an oversized gray suit like a refugee from some 20th century war. Hey, you say, and the man freezes. I need clean clothes. The man calculates for a moment, then his eyes go to your tattered satchel. I'm with me. His accent is thick, his breath unpleasant like bile. You're led downstairs, through an old gym to the showers. You see the man's eyes on your satchel, so you bring it with you, hanging on one of the shower heads, then cross the showers and turn on another. The servant tosses you a bar of soap and approaches with the clothes in a nylon bag hung on a plastic coat hanger. He hangs the clothes up to the next to the satchel. He hangs the clothes up next to the satchel, then lingers next to it. Go away. The servant retreats, his eyes never leaving your satchel as you scrape the road off your skin. When you're done, you open the nylon bag he left. Inside is a lightweight coverall with a patch that says Doug. It'll do. You squeeze out your hair, drag yourself into the coverall, and return barefoot to the Elysium with your messenger bag. I like to imagine that he's put his hair into a ponytail as well with a rubber band. Here's a photograph of this handsome man and his handsome eagle. Here, let you linger on that for a few more seconds. Get a good visualization of what this man looks like. Alright. The man in the turquoise jewelry watches your approach with a slight smile. He's seated comfortably in a wicker chair next to the small zinc table with an old laptop, a white hat, and a heap of typed and handwritten correspondence. The Nosferatu standing beside him only scowls. Welcome to Tuscan, he said. Welcome to Tuscan, he says. His accent is foreign from somewhere in Europe. Pretend friggin' cowboy is European, despite the Native American jewelry and the wide-brimmed hat in front of him. I am Prince Leto. This is Dove, and you are Teddy, he says. Courier. Looks like you had a difficult journey. You're dripping onto the flagstones, but it's water now, not mud. Give us the data, usurper. I don't know what that was. The Nosferatu snaps. Dove is wearing a silk screened jacket, kicked around Converse All-Stars, and a snapback with the local minor league baseball team on it. Driving gloves are tucked into her pocket. Another courier? I'm not here to pick a fight. I toss her the USB. Here's a photograph of Dove. Hello, Dove. This is skin, not bone. It's just pulled very taut. She catches it, turns it over as if expecting some diabolical trap, and hands it over to Prince Leto while glancing suspiciously down at you. Leto's laptop is an old Asus, probably intended to read information once before it's destroyed. And the prince inserts the USB. A folder appears with a video and a few text files. Feel free to watch, Teddy, Leto says. He checks his Vacheron Constantine. It's 1:49 a.m. Then he looks to the east. He stares for a long time, as if with longing, then shakes his head. I don't think this interests you directly, but I try not to keep secrets here in Tuscan. A warm, friendly smile and in eyes that watch you like a... Where did that bird go? The video opens awkwardly, with a hand holding a webcam. You see a man's face, and then you see the ritual chamber. Here's the man, and his face. Ooh, ah. You recognize Jasper, your fellow Tremere, from your sire's descriptions, though you've never met him. He's white and apple-cheeked with a short gray beard, portly in the way vampires rarely are. Like an avuncular college professor. He's wearing a Fair Isle sweater and pressed slacks and holding a silver knife with one hand as he tries to adjust the webcam. That's Jasper Knowles, Tremere Magus, Leto says conversationally. Do you know him? I think my sire's met him a few times. I owe Leto to not to misrepresent myself, though I'm not exposing my sire more than I need to. Leto watches you closely as you answer, tongue against his teeth, concentrating. He thinks you know something, but you've never seen this Tremere. Dove gasps. Knowles had stepped away from the webcam, revealing a dingy cinder block with faded orange stripes on the walls and a Nosferatu chained to an iron spike in the floor. That Nosferatu almost killed you the other night. Sire, Dove whispers. Prince Leto's illusion of good cheer falters for a moment. Both he and the eagle glare at Dove. You're here so that he can get a read on you, not so his underling can give you information. This experiment has gone on for as long as it can, Knowles says in the video. Science sometimes ends in failure, my dear, and so does our version of it. No intelligence remains in this specimen, and it has become increasingly dangerous and aggressive. Once it's destroyed, I'll send what's left to you. I'm also going to wrap up my daytime business. I know that we are still allowed to communicate via email as flesh and blood citizens, but my mortal identity is almost 80 years old, and soon people will wonder something off screen draws Knowles' attention. He turns the knife, ready to insert it into his wrist, and you know enough blood sorcery to recognize that he's planning to attack. Unfortunately for Knowles, he's looking the wrong way as he stares past the webcam. A figure detaches itself from the shadows of the wall, walks almost casually up to the chained Nosferatu, and removes its shackles. The rest of the video is chaos. The white hurls itself at Knowles. The Tremere screams and stumbles into the webcam, which falls. Sorcerer's fire blackens the ceiling. Dirty fists rise and fall again and again. Unlike most Tremere, Knowles has mastered the vampiric art of inhuman resilience. But that only makes his destruction longer and more horrible. Then the video suddenly ends. What was up with the figure that freed the Nosferatu? Why couldn't I see it clearly? You've never seen Knowles before, Leto says. He sounds frustrated. Aren't you a warlock? I'm a neonate, you remind Prince Leto. The once invincible pyramid of Clan Tremere is now fractured, but you're still at the bottom of what's left. You don't get to talk to important people. All this, and there's the mess with NVIDIA, Leto mutters under his breath. Well, that's for later. Dove, go back. Who was that shadow? You watch it again, but the shadow was just a blur of formless motion. An impressive disguise, Leto says thoughtfully, freeze framing on the blur. The assassin doesn't even move fast at first. There's nothing but a smear. Almost as impressive as this rooftop. And what happened to the Nosferatu? Did he escape? He rolls the video back and forth, trying to get a better view of the white. Then he seems to remember you. He reaches into a bag at his feet and hands you a manila envelope, then goes back to his scrolling. $1,000 in 20s. Your job is done. You know the answer to Leto's question, of course. The Eagle Prince's gaze wanders again. He looks east, over the skyline of Tuscan. I share what I know about my encounter with the White. This will let me in good with the Camarilla, which might go further than $1,000 ever could. You describe the battle and your narrow escape from the mindless Nosferatu. I'm impressed that you're still alive, little neonate. The Nosferatu you fought was old and powerful in his time, the child of the Rimmerhouse himself. Then his tone hardens and slices through the air like a razor. Dove, your sire is now your responsibility. Find and destroy him. You have 7 nights. Watching the video seemed to have taken all the fight out of the Nosferatu. She just nods. You have too many questions. The most obvious is, why did Prince Leto let you watch the video? Princes are secretive and paranoid creatures, and even in these nights when the true elders have sunken into torpor or fled to the old world, even a young prince like Leto has survived centuries of betrayal and revolution. Princes don't tolerate risk. That means either Leto or his situation here are unstable, or, worse, he already knows a great deal about you and has accounted for you. Teddy, I have more work for you, the Prince of Tuscan says. You will remain here tonight. My man Alexander will provide you with shelter, sustenance, and suitable clothing. The man who led you to the shower returns. He beckons for you to follow, walking with the quick, commanding steps of an old servant. Here's a photograph of this fine gentleman. Look at him. Honk. Alright. An old ghoul. Kindred grow strange and cold as they age, but old blood slaves are stranger still, and sometimes more dangerous. With that settled, you should drink. He taps a code into a locked case and takes out a tall flute of blood. The Eagle Prince apologizes for this crude repast, but he does not trust new guests around his herd when they are so hungry. And you must understand that he cannot trust every new arrival. You drain the glass and feel the blood sparkle through your veins. Room temperature blood, even when treated not to spoil, lacks savor and resonance. You wonder if having to drink this stuff is a punishment or a test. When you're done, you're still hungry. Then the servant leads you back to a glass observation room above the club's main dance floor, where a selection of clothing is waiting. And you realize that Prince Leto is giving you gifts. That isn't good. You know what happens when you end up in debt to a prince. Please, Alexander says. You must dress for Elysium. The Eagle Prince insists. You glance at the clothes on display. Lato isn't exactly draping you in Armani, at least, but you see a mix of work clothes and streetwear. Nothing too upmarket. You don't see any bloodstains either. Let's see. Hmm. Yeah. What if I need to go clubbing? I need streetwear so I don't look like an old man with a young man's face. You were a little too young for the punk scene when you were alive, and now you're old enough to, you're starting to worry about looking like a fossil. You still remember some of the Tremere you knew when you were first embraced, the neonates who still wore leisure suits. The Second Inquisition probably took care of them. So no goth, no punk, no Edwardian steampunk costumes. You flip through the clothes until you find some actually modern streetwear. Gray hoodie, nylon pants, Adidas, or Adidas. Don't get on my case for that. A shell jacket in case it gets cold, and a nylon messenger's bag. You check yourself in the mirror. You look normal. You look like a living person. Good. Living people don't wear watches as often as they used to, but you've never been surprised by a sunrest yet, and you plan to keep it that way. A Nixon Regulus completes the ensemble. You ascend the metal stairs with a thump. You ascend the metal stairs that thump with the bass of the idiom below, back up to the rooftop Elysium. Lato's eagle watches you. A Gangle Prince is unusual, even in these nights. You wonder where Lato came from, and you wonder what he wants with you. He's still watching the video and reviewing whatever information that they got from the other USBs. Dove is scanning the parking lot from below. You will be remaining with us for some time, Alexander says. You understand what this means, yes? Of course you understand. What will happen if you try to flee? Of course you understand what will happen when you try to flee. You look towards the parking lot, that parking lot too. You need a car. We are very friendly people in Tuscan, Alexander says, finally smiling. It's an awful sight. Little gray rat teeth, skin that crinkles like paper. Not like other cities you may know. Speak to people about what you need. Dove was like you once. She drove. You need a car? She has cars. Her retainer, Carlos, is listening to the music below. He's a police officer. He has, stashes of the shit. Is that what it said? He keeps evidence rooms with the good shit. Maybe you need that sort of man. He is proud and cruel, though. Do not let him bait you. Carlos spots you and Alexander looking at him and gives you the finger. And if you need blood, blood. Oh, and if you need blood, Alexander says. I was a doctor in my youth when I was young. I said to my teachers, this bleeding, it does not work. It does not make patients better. Isn't that funny, knowing what I know now? A little joke. But I have an important job. When Kindred feed and kill and endanger the Masquerade, I tell Prince Leto. I hate telling him those things. I would prefer if Kindred came to me for advice. I will give you this advice now. Do not hunt near the Viper. It is not permitted, and of course, do not use your gifts here. The sudden movement of blood, it upsets Dove. And they give you a whole host of options. Actually, Alexander, before I leave, what can you tell me about procuring blood in Tuscan? The old girl is unsavory and might be deranged, but blood is life, and I need it. Since you have presented yourself to the prince, Alexander says, you may hunt. Not here, the Viper is Prince Lato's, but I can provide you with good, quiet places. I provide this service not for your sake, but so that you do not embarrass our prince. But this is only for tonight, understand. There have been accidents in Tuscan, and the prince will not trust you to wander freely after tonight. He rattles off a long list of nightclubs, halfway ball homes, kill shelters, blood banks, and hospitals. His knowledge is encyclopedic, precise, and up-to-date. His warnings are invaluable. There's some kind of dispute in the parking lot below. 3 women yelling at a guy. Dove gestures, and 2 heavies head downstairs to sort it out. Okay, let's see. Dove hasn't exactly been polite, but we have a shared interest in cars. I chat her up about different accidents that we've been in. So the whole Cadillac is on fire, and I'm kicking and kicking, and I'm trying to break the window. Dove says, right, because you're trying to follow the story. It isn't easy because I'm still handcuffed to the guy who was trying to pretend to be a werewolf, right? And I finally kick through the window, rip half the dead werewolf guy's arm off to get free. I'm out of my fucking mind now with all the fire, and I finally crawl out of the car and get clear before do they blow it up and escalates? I don't know, probably not. But anyway, I'm finally clear, so I run across the parking lot laughing because I'm thrilled not to have met Final Death chained up to that guy, and I barely have enough time to look up before Leto comes screaming around the corner in a Ford Bronco with lights and off and runs me over. I was in the wrong Cadillac the whole time. No. Two black Cadillac Escalades in the parking lot of the Marriott. Dove says, how was I supposed to know which one? Anyway, that's why I don't get to drive anymore. That's why Lato wants assholes like you driving. Uh, you're not so bad. You want to get out of here tonight? Aren't you nice? Dove says. Obnoxious, but nice. But you're here for a ride, right? Give me a few hours and I'll send someone to find you. About a car. Two more kindred arrive from the dance floor, skin slick with other people's sweat, cradling their dazed-looking blood dolls. Prince Leto narrows his eyes at the vulgar display, but says nothing. And, yeah, let's talk to Leto. I talked to Leto. Why is an outlander in charge? That's rare for the Camarilla, but unexpected things interest me. Maybe I can learn more about the prince and cultivate a relationship with him. I have clicked on something I should not have. Okay, we're good. When you approach, Prince Leto closes his laptop and rises cordially. It's a truism among kindred that all elders are monsters, but at least this one can hide it. He's unexpectedly tall despite his youthful features. You can picture him on a warhorse, plowing through ranks of helpless peasant infantry. Excuse me. It is dangerous to interact with any elder, but you sense an opportunity here. Excuse me again. You make small talk for a few minutes, describing a few recent deliveries. Once it's clear that Prince Leto knows who you and your sire are. It's strange. It's strange to exist again in a time of ignorance, Teddy. Leto says. Well, when I was new, Dad, the Commonwealth was still a land of darkness and superstition. Oh, I'm sorry. We had only just met. Haven't we? And I'm talking to you like I'm picking up a thread of an old story. Let me start at the beginning. I died about the same time most of my country did, around when the United States was fighting King George III. Most Americans know nothing of those events, of course. I was held in little esteem when I came to Arizona, especially by the Ventru who ruled here at the time, he continues. But when the old prince went mad, attacking the other clans and got himself destroyed, there were a few elders left who had not already fled, and so I became prince in this new dark age, brought about by the Second Inquisition and our fear justified, it turns out, of being tracked through the devices. He taps his laptop case. And in between, Prince Leto skipped over it about 200 years there. A story for another time, Teddy, the prince says with a secret smile. Whatever was happening in the parking lot below has sorted itself out. The heavies are back upstairs, laughing. You memorize their names and faces in case there's trouble later, then circle the Elysium for a few minutes, getting a feel for the place. You can't believe you're in Tuscan. You wonder if anybody recognizes you. Beyond the rooftop, the city lights appeared dim and washed out as if seen through a black veil. Red brake lights from the highway look like a sluggish trail of blood. Just call her! That's Dove speaking in a hushed tone. Just call her! That's Dove speaking in hushed tone, but anxious tones to Prince Leto. You can't quite hear the rest of the conversation, but then the prince's genial smile vanishes. Dove withers at whatever he says next. Then the eagle swings its golden eyes back toward you. Ah, Teddy. I told you I would have work for you. I need to send some emails, and that's not as easy as it once was. Come here. You were still a fledgling when the Second Inquisition burned through the centers of Camarilla power, places like the Vienna Chantry, your clan's arcane fortress. You weren't important enough to draw the Second Inquisition's attention. They've been quiet for years, quiet enough that some kindred are starting to use phones and email to conduct their night work again, cutting into your business. But you know they're fools. The Second Inquisition was never beaten. But the Inquisition is just collecting information now, waiting for an opportunity to strike again. Prince Leto does not want to give them an opportunity. You come highly recommended, he says, and I hate to see a proud member, that is, of Clan Tremere brought down by low circumstances. I need you to run a few letters to a few cities near Tuscan. Don't worry, nothing is more than a single night's trip. Let's see. Why not? He's full of hubris. I don't think he's genuinely flirting with him, though. I forgot to read the thing out. He says, well, I think he said something like, well, because you're so charming. Leto smiles, either genuinely delighted or cynically calculating how to exploit his interest. But before he can choose his next words, Dove turns to you and says, Prince Leto doesn't need your commentary, whelp. The prince laughs warmly and says, but we all need his help here in these difficult nights, and we can pay. $1,000 for the first delivery, more based on your performance and how much you've impressed my court. In addition, my man Alexander will provide you with vessels, and you may hunt freely in any of the other cities while you visit while making your runs. The Camarilla is the best chance for all vampires. Shame the ones in charge are all assholes, but maybe I can work to fix that. I'm in. What's the job? Prince Leto hands you a printout marked with 3 locations and 3 faces. You recognize one instantly. It's your sire, NVIDIA call. Your eyes go to the garnet ring on her of white. He points to each face in turn. Your sire worked closely with Jasper after she escaped from New York. She drifted away from him for reasons I don't understand, and she still needs to be informed of his destruction. She also needs to know that, without Jasper Knowles' considerable private wealth funding her, she can no longer sustain her research, and she must return to Tuscan. Should we tell him that she'll go crazy when she finds out? Dove asks the prince. I'm sure her child is more familiar than any of us with Dr. Collins' mercurial temperament, Prince Leto says. Nonetheless, I'll offer my advice. He loves doing that, Dove says. Teddy, I encourage you to deliver my letter and get out. You won't like your sire's reaction when she realizes she's broke. Is she making a hash of the masquerade? Is that the problem? Probably not, Dove says, shrugging her shoulders. But bring a clipboard. If she's breaking the rules, let us know. Leto points to the next face. Patermuster is one of the rabble, a Bruja. He lurks in St. Basil's Hospital in Phoenix, looking after the lost lambs of our flock. Are the rabble, the clanless, thin bloods, the mad ones, maybe even Gangrel. Leto chuckles at his own wit, but he actually keeps them in line, though they are dangerously lax. In fact, I would like you to encourage a bit more tidiness from the kindred at St. Basil's. No open feeding, no drug running, no unauthorized embraces, that sort of thing. This is not a formal mission, you understand, but if you can make our dissatisfaction known, I would appreciate it. But more important, with Knowles gone, the hospital will be up for renovation. Those renovations will compromise St. Basil's usefulness as a haven. I'll write instructions for what Patermuster needs to do. Of course I can do that. I'll sound friendly to impress the prince, but I'm not running errands for the Camarilla without getting paid. Eager little usurper, isn't he? Leto glances at his second in command, then continues. Finally, the Ventru Elin Olive Krona is at a migrant camp. Give me 1 second. I have to respond to a text message. I do apologize. How unbelievably unprofessional of me. Okay. Finally, the Ventru Ellen Olive Krona is at a migrant camp in Sierra Blanca, Texas, Prince Leto says. You may remember her from that excitement a few years ago. Leto is referring to the final death of the old Prince of Tuscan, a powerful blue blood manipulated into launching a crusade of purification against his clan's old rivals, including the rabble. She has since returned to the Camarilla's good graces, since she provides much of the Southwest with blood. But her operation exists atop a mortal substructure that is profoundly politically unstable. Jasper knows his destruction will further destabilize the situation, and she needs to know how. A steady source of blood down at that camp sounds like easy living. I can get used to that. Of course, you won't be able to stay, but it sounds a bit like vacation. Okay. Anyway, 3 deliveries, $1,000 each, and you are welcome to feed in Tuscan in every city you visit for a year after finishing your final delivery. Though you will have to abide by my rules for neonates here in Tuscan. My man, Alexander, will explain once we're finished here. I also give you permission to own property and to create no more than 1 ghoul, though you may not embrace new kindred. And take this for emergencies, and for emergencies only. He hands you a prepaid flip phone and a baggie full of SIM cards. Now, if you excuse me, I must compose the letters you are to deliver. The prince moves to a writing desk under a Ramada leaving the pile of electronic devices and written correspondence, and gets to work composing his messages. You sit down nearby. I like to imagine that he's got one leg crossed over the other. He's like studying a painting or something. You sit down nearby to disable the phone's GPS and get rid of everything that could be used to track you. Even the device even more stripped down than it began. You glance around at the rooftop Elysium, and your first thought is no food. Your hunger is starting to distract you. Later tonight, you'll need to hunt. Yeah, I'm too hungry to risk socializing, and I'm not breaking any risks tonight. I hang around and keep my mouth shut until I can leave. You fade into the shadows of the cacti and watch the party. There are more kindred here now than when you were first arrived. Not just Dove, but another Nosferatu unrelated to Rimmerhouse. An ecstatic-looking Toreador dripping with other people's sweat from the dance floor. Prince Lato's Malkavian Oracle, and a few scummy-looking Venture in $3,000 suits. Because it's the Camarilla and they come with furniture. Lato has a small army of blood slaves, but you learn from whispered gossip that none is proven worthy of the embrace. But other than asking a few careful questions, you remain quiet, watching and listening. The kindred here keep disappearing downstairs, but you're not sure allowed to feed in the Elysium. Your palms itch. You can't stay here. You need to see what the city has to offer. As if sensing your mood, Alexander returns for a third time, his approach heralded by his reeking breath. I've spoken with the prince, and he has given you permission to feed in his city tonight, he says. After that, you must speak with me about arrangements. Tuscan can be a difficult city, and you do not yet have a ride. For clubs, stay away from the country and western places. We have what is it called? A jamboree, right? Here in America. But they are claimed by the others and do not feed from the sleeping. The Venture of Prince Lato's court must feed that way and do not want competition. Otherwise, your needs can be met just north of here. The clubs and alleys, drunks and prostitutes, even veterinary clinics and hospitals. You will be watched, of course. Do not dishonor the prince. You lean over the edge of the railing, looking down on Tuscan. For years, you've taken blood wherever you could, usually as a payment for a job. But most vampires your age hunt, and most of them specialize. Before you became a career, you too had a specialty. You think back to those years within video call before you drove the night roads to perpetuate your existence. You try to remember how you developed the skills you developed to feed during sex. What can I say? It's classic. It's a classic, and it taught me to lie and charm. It taught me to lie and charm. I hit the clubs, though getting in is always expensive. And better nights, your first stop would be eBay to buy something flashy and cheap. But you don't have the time, so you talk to one of the blood dolls and manage to haggle for a clean, half-decent set of clothes, even more distinctive than your streetwear. The Viper Club may be off limits, but you can see two more nightclubs from the rooftops Elysium. You head for the Red Rock rather than the Paul Cézanne-themed bar you were expecting. It's a hard rock club. The wall of noise hits you the moment you step inside, a discordant wail of 70s fuzz grunge. You push your way through the sea of long-legged white girls with straight brown hair and halter tops to the bar and look for, what are you looking for? I've never cared. I'm not going to start tonight. You scan the bar looking for anyone with the right combination of pretty and vulnerable. You need blood, and you're also going to enjoy yourself. After so many miserable nights on the road, you're also going to enjoy yourself after so many nights on the road. After studying the crowd a few times, you spot a young woman with black hair, standing up against the wall on her phone. You're there before she can finish her text, roots, cat eye makeup, and bright eye lipstick. And since you're not stupid, you can see how careful the construction is. She's playing at crazy mess and enjoying it. When she glances up at you, her gray eyes are clear and cunning. Tuscan sucks, she says. I just got here, you say. Should I go home? She laughs. She asks where you're from, and you lie. She's from Boston, which you've also been told sucks. You ask if that's true. Well, we're all really mean, she says, shouting up. I'm not going to shout that. To be heard over the drums. You keep her talking, let her think she's funny. She actually is funny, but that doesn't matter. Lots of women don't get a chance to tell jokes, so you just let her talk as you watch the pale blue veins across the tops of her breasts. Finally, you both agree that the Red Rock sucks and to leave for another nightclub. You get halfway down the street when she says, my apartment's right there. You and she have something in common. I'm going to skip a chunk of text if it gets a little too graphic, I promise you that. You've both gone without for too long. She slams the door closed, fumbles for a light switch, and misses it. And just drags you through the dark to her bed. Your lips find her breast, then her throat. She manages a half scream as your fangs slide in. Then, just as she gasps, you drink. You can't stop. It's been too long, and your beast is too strong. Your prey's hands run through your hair, then beat on your back, trying to pull you off. Your jaws close around her windpipe. Any other night, you'd be disposing of a corpse, but just as you lose yourself in the ecstasy of the kiss, you feel someone watching you, and that gives you the focus to wrench your mouth away from her bloody neck. There's a window over her bed, but when you look outside, you don't see anyone. Still, you close the blinds and check on your friend from Boston. She's unconscious, but breathing steadily. Still, she lost a lot of blood. You take an old-fashioned phone off the receiver and call 911 and just leave it to ring. Then you just need to clean up. It won't always be that easy. It won't always be that easy. You think as you sit on a park bench, sluggishly moving your stolen blood around your body. You vampires can always have fun for the first few nights, but then other kindred learn about your tricks, or hunters notice statistical anomalies where the herd itself instinctively reacts to the invisible predator in their midst. But tonight, you feel good. A Lotus' Spirit Turbo in powder blue rolls up to the curb, blaring synthwave loud enough to scare the crows. The driver flings his parcel your way. When you pick it up, he peels out. The parcel contains a card for a pawn shop, written on the back, Cars. It's a good movie. There's also an extended stay ticket for a parking garage with a 4-digit key code written on the back, so it looks like you have a place to park. Even after midnight, it feels dangerous to run across the wide palm tree-lined boulevard that leads into your destination. You need a car. You're itching like earlier when you needed blood, and now the need only now the need is to move fast, to stop fighting the shape of the city and start flowing through it the way it wants you to. By the end of tonight, you either need to buy a car or learn how to turn into a bat because Tuscan is no place for pedestrians. Covenant Pawn Shop is wedged between an auto repair shop and a nail salon across from a Title Max. Signs read, "Cash for guns, we buy gold," enclosed. You step into the sad, dusty spiritual void of the pawn shop. You pass PS4 games, bedazzled purses, a glass case full of rings, regalo perfecto, and enough rifles to conquer Belgium. The first thing you do is stock up on a few necessities of your trade, a few duffel bags and rucksacks, a mini crowbar, a small folding knife, a folding shovel, a hacksaw, some lockpicks, matches, cord, electrician's tape, a flashlight, blood and tissue kit, spare USBs, a portable toolkit. You stop at the knives because you recognize the silver in one display case. Jesper Knowles was holding it before he was killed, or maybe it's a knockoff or some movie prop or something, but you can't be sure. That's weird. Here is Elena, the lady behind the desk. Always loved her design. Behind the display case with the knives is a pretty young woman with choppy blonde hair and Victorian replica railway glasses. She's peered over those sunglasses to watch you like a hawk since you pushed past the closed sign and walked in. You know that reaction. She recognizes a predator but doesn't know exactly what kind, so this place is only tangentially connected to the Tuscan Camarilla. It and she are independent and kept that way because they're useful. When you get closer, the young woman leans close, studying your streetwear. Her bare arms are covered in H.R. Geiger tattoos, sinuous biomechanical figures in shades of black, gray, and green. Finally, she says, "Miguel sent you." It's not quite a question and not quite a statement. You have no idea who Miguel is, maybe one of Dove's servitors. You did ask the prince's second-in-command, Dove, about getting something to drive. Whatever. You nod. "Call me Elena. Let's get you set up." She throws a red leather jacket over her tattoos. She makes sure that you can see the Glock in her shoulder holster. The cars are waiting out back. A rusted chain-link fence divides Covenant Pawn Shop's parking lot from a row of rusted Quonset huts. The huts and the slightly taller buildings on either side serve to hide a full parking lot of parked cars that probably shouldn't be here. "Miguel says you need wheels," Elena says. She steps into the shadows and starts messing around on her phone, but she keeps her eyes on you above the railway glasses. "These cars are shit. Miguel either hates your guts or doesn't care about your mission for Prince Leteau. If your mission for Prince Leteau succeeds or fails. You instantly dismiss the vans, economy cars, and anything covered in rust that would require more cash to repair than buy. That leaves you with four mediocre specimens: a Mitsubishi 3000 GT with too many aftermarket mods, a little Honda S2000 with electrical problems, and an ancient but still rolling BMW Series 3, and an ugly but functional Nissan Frontier. Tonight only, Elena says. Anything with four wheels is 20% off. Miguel must like you or hate me. The stuff inside is at full price. She props the back door open. So it took about $400 for all that stuff Teddy bought earlier. All right. So I'm going to take the Honda S200 because that is the... Oh, goodness, actually. Yeah, let's just take the Honda. Check out the guns. I cannot afford the guns. Okay. I chat up Elena. I'm curious about that knife. I'm also a little curious about better prices because I'm broke. So is that a what do they call it? A Klingon knife? A Tajik? No. Ilana says her pronunciation is flawless. Mine is not. And you can't afford it. It's solid silver for killing werewolves, I guess. Her tone says she doesn't believe in werewolves. Question: are there werewolves in Tuscan? Maybe you should buy it. And I'm not selling it anyway because I think the guy who sold it might actually come back. She unlocks the case and hands you the crooked silver blade. This has to be the one that the Tremere was holding in the video. Elena goes back to messing around on her phone. I have the exact ritual for this sort of thing. I step into the shadows and confer with the blade, unlocking its secrets. Your sire's approach to thaumaturgy was never conventional, and you've picked up all sorts of rituals from outside the narrow confines of the Tremere's broken pyramid. You breathe over the silver blade and watch its edge crawl with red spiderweb patterns. Within, you see Jasper Knowles forging the weapon, eyes wild with the beast as he forces himself to hammer on the blade over an open flame. But to your disappointment, you see that the weapon isn't some kind of artifact of Tremere sorcery. Its creation was just a test of Knowles' courage in the face of fire. It could have been important to him, but it's just a silver knife. And then you see the next person to pick it up. Hello, Julian. The Banu Hakim's pale face creases in disappointment, a copy of your own expression. Just a knife? He says. Man, that sucks. Then a shadowy image of Elena examining the knife, and then you snap back into the present. Other than the pawnbroker, and now you, Julian Sim, was the last person to hold this blade. You gonna kill werewolves with that, or what? You return the blade to its case, having learned all you can. I need allies. And I like pretty girls with tattoos. I flirt with Elena and try to feel out some kind of alliance. Tell me about the tattoos, you say. Elena hesitates for a moment, then shrugs out of her red leather jacket, revealing the biomechanical sleeve tattoos. When my grandmother's first boyfriend died, she turned to opium and art. I couldn't figure out where to get the opium, so when my brother died, I read a lot of art books. You place a finger on one bicep, where Geiger's birth machine slowly tessellates into a blur of abstract mechanical shapes ringed by tentacles. She flinches, then leans into your touch as you trace the design down behind the yoke of her tank top. Who's she, you ask, revealing the face stretched across Elena's back. Just a face, Elena says. Some things are like that, are just what they look like. Are you like that? You hesitate with a hand on her shoulder, and she slides her leather jacket back up and pops a collar. You going to be in Tuscan for a while? She asks. Yeah. Give me your phone. You watch carefully, fearing anything that might let somebody track you. But she just enters her number. Don't contact me if you're in trouble, Elena says. Her eyes are hidden by her railway shades, but she's smiling as if she's already imagining your next encounter. And I'm going to go back to shopping, because I don't want to push my luck with dear Elena here. I can't afford any of that stuff, but I do want the prices on them, just to know. Oh my god, okay. Data intrusion is an increasingly important aspect of modern life, and you can't do everything just by calling up the front desk and pretending to be the password inspector. Controlled by Elena, you inspect laptops, tablets, and hybrids. You know that any computer you buy will only be a shell into which you can pour your own expertise and torrented software, but nothing you see combined portability with flexibility in quite a way you need. And then you spot an old mini laptop on the computer. My work, Elena says as you flip open the Raspberry Pi laptop. There's a finished version on a nearby shelf, but you're not interested in someone's personal machine. You want something you can shape yourself. You boot it up. It's fast. It also has a ridiculous number of ports for its size. It's the Wi-Fi password. Elena taps a plastic sign. The connection is strong. It feels solid too, despite how light it is. Damn, you're in love. You're a little bit in love. How much? $600. No refunds. Not throwing a trash bag full of cables and peripherals. No refunds on them either. Unfortunately, you can't afford it right now. And I'll look at the sword and the suit the next time we come to Elena's pawn shop. It's 216 according to your Nixon when you pull out of the Covenant pawn shop in your new Honda S200 2000 and sunrises at 6:29 a.m. It's still early, so you drive around for an hour just to find the cheapest gas stations and fastest ways out of town. Then you accelerate smoothly onto East Broadway Boulevard near a plasma center and head for the garage address you got earlier. When a shadow crosses the hood of your Honda, you look up and catch a glimpse of a wing eclipsing a streetlight. Was that Prince Lato's eagle? You find your spot in the parking garage. Right in front of it is a metal door with a keypad, and you grab everything from your Honda, lock it, and enter the code. Inside is inside is an office with peeling linoleum floors, an ancient metal desk with a rusted mini fridge on it, and a sleeping bag. A short tile corridor ends in a jury-rigged shower and a drain. There's a clear plastic bag and some toiletries on the tile. Excuse me. And a bottle of 409 that just won't do anything against the smell of mildew. There's no Wi-Fi. Still, it's better than an abandoned semi-trailer, and your phone actually gets a good reception. Even better, there are escape routes into the sewers that you can use. You loosen the grates to make sure that you have a clear route into the sewers in case you're exposed. You're just getting settled in when you hear the door lock beep. The metal door opens, and there's Julian Sim. There's a photograph of the homeboy, Julian Sim, in his short shirt. New personal low, Julian says. He's wearing a glitched t-shirt and a smile. He starts to enter, then looks down and says, "You have to invite me in." And that, gamers, is where we'll be ending the first episode of Vampire the Masquerade Night Road. I applaud you for joining me this far. If you got this far with my more than subpar reading skills, I hope you've been enjoying it. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, if you want to get a copy of the game, the link is in the description. If you want to know more about the music that's playing in the background, that's by Rik Schaffer. His Spotify link is also in the description. And if you're interested in playing a what do you call it? If you're interested in playing a Night Roads Courier, just like my beloved Teddy here, you are more than welcome to create an account on the World of Darkness website. Go to the account section and go down to, you'll see it. It's a choice of games specific lore sheet section, and in it they have the Night Roads Courier. I will remind you once again that I am not sponsored by any of the World of Darkness people. I just really like their setting. Again, I thank you for joining me, and we'll see you guys